Welcome back, everyone. Next up, we have Foothills Exploration, Inc. It trades on the OTC under the symbol FTXP and is an oil and gas exploration company focused on natural gas exploration and participating in the global energy transition. Please welcome its VP of Business Development, Tara Roberts. Welcome, Tara.
Hi, how are you today?
Great. We're looking forward to hearing your presentation. The floor is yours.
Amazing. So as you mentioned, I am currently the VP of Business Development for Foothills Exploration. I was recently announced as the new CEO of New Energy Ventures. New Energy Ventures is a division of Foothills Exploration that we recently launched. We're very excited about. The purpose of New Energy Ventures is to identify areas to contribute to a balanced energy mix. We believe that energy is in a transformation period, and we want to contribute to a low carbon future. So we decided to launch New Energy Ventures. Just so everybody is aware, this is a forward-looking information statement. Everything are projections and just that, and anything that is listed is not historical fact. So this is our new logo that we just launched a couple of weeks ago, and we're very excited about. We will be launching our website shortly, so keep tuned in for that. So at New Energy Venture, we have a mission and a strategy, and that's to pair with talented entrepreneurs. We want to get involved with management teams to develop and commercialize new technologies for a sustainable and energy efficient low carbon future. We have a few current core areas of interest, which lie in power generation, carbon capture, hydrogen production, and oil field clean technology applications. As I mentioned, energy is in a transitional period, and that has a lot to do with the Paris Agreement and the targets of meeting that zero carbon emission. Our current government also has goals. They want to lower the emission rate of 50% of greenhouse emissions by 2030, and they want to reach that zero net emission by 2050. And we at Foothills, as well as New Energy Ventures, believe that fossil fuels will remain an important part of the energy mix, but we also believe that these traditional forms of energy are going to have to do some collaborations with sustainable energies in order to meet those goals of 2030 and 2050. And we believe hydrogen has been emerging as a key component on a global scale during this transitional period. And we believe that this is going to provide numerous opportunities for attractive financial returns. With that being said, the hydrogen market is looking very desirable. The Bank of America recently forecasted that the hydrogen industry is at its tipping point and headed to $11 trillion USD. And the hydrogen projections for productions are going to increase by 5,000% by 2026. And just 6 months ago, there were 258 large-scale projects in the hydrogen industry. And that has actually grown to 359 currently. So just that in 6 months, there was an increase of 39% in projects. So huge growth upticks. And the global hydrogen generation market is expected to reach 199 million by 2023, and that's from 2028 of a market of 135 billion. It's looking like the break-even projections are going to hit for hydrogen around 2028 to 2034, and projections of production are to reach 50 tons of hydrogen production per day by 2025. There's currently a company in New York that is in construction for a hydrogen hub, and they're going to be teaming up with their current hub in Tennessee, and their goals are to have 50 tons of hydrogen production per day by 2025. And then on a global scale, they are looking to meet 1,000 tons of hydrogen per day of production by 2028. So hydrogen is already gaining an unprecedented economic and political momentum. There's already several countries within the globe that have hydrogen strategies. Those include Japan, Australia, South Korea, Chile, and Canada, just to name a few. Japan is actually on the forefront of the hydrogen industry. They've already contributed $19 billion for projects within hydrogen to meet some goals that they have by 2030. Australia also is at the forefront. They just finished their first hydrogen hub in 2020, and they've already committed to building 4 more hubs within the country, and they have invested $250 million into these. And that was actually just announced this year that they're starting that initiative. So I had the pleasure of attending the Hydrogen Shot Initiative Summit put on by the U.S. Department of Energy a few weeks ago. And they had many great goals and aspirations. And they all kind of came back and aimed towards accelerating breakthroughs for a more abundant, affordable, and reliable clean energy solutions. They have those goals of meeting 50% reductions in greenhouse emissions by 2030, and then also meeting that net zero by 2050. So they believe in order to hit those goals, 20% of all energy consumption is going to need to be at a global, 20% is going to need to be hydrogen based. So they've really put in a lot of thought and set some goals for themselves. And one of those goals is the 1-to-1-to-1 goal for hydrogen. And that's to lower the cost to $1 per 1 kilogram in 1 decade. By achieving these goals, it not only creates more clean energy jobs, it reduces greenhouse emissions. It can unlock so many new markets for hydrogen, including clean steel and cement manufacturing, clean ammonia, and clean storage opportunities as well. There's a lack of that, so I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunities there. And with that being said, the DOE's actually already committed $52 million to 31 projects in hydrogen currently. And if we keep pushing these agendas and really stick to it and try to meet these goals, I think it could position America to be a competitor and in the global market of hydrogen. So what is natural hydrogen? Well, we all know that hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. So with that being said, natural hydrogen is a gas that's found as it seeps from certain geological formations. And I have some of those listed in our presentation that you can take a look at. And natural hydrogen is generated by a natural geochemical process inside the Earth's crust. And because of this, it is a sustainable and boundless source, and we can really capitalize this in the energy market. So moving on to natural hydrogen and clean hydrogen. So I think it's important before we get into this slide that we kind of go over some terminology so we have some basic understanding of what I'm talking about. And when I'm referring to green hydrogen, I'm talking about the source of hydrogen that is created through electrolysis by using renewable energy such as solar and wind. When I'm referring to gray hydrogen, this is the hydrogen that's made via steam by methane reforming brown hydrogen from coal, and natural hydrogen, as I just said, is naturally occurring in geological formations. So environmentalists in the market prefer green hydrogen, as you can imagine, because it's zero emissions, and it's going to help push that agenda of meeting that goal of zero emissions by 2050. But the downside of it, it's very expensive to produce. It is about four times more expensive to produce than natural hydrogen is, than gray and brown hydrogen is. And so New Energy Ventures wants to take a hard look at natural hydrogen because it is significantly lower cost, a fraction of what green hydrogen is, about 1/8 less than what it would cost to produce green hydrogen. So just to take a better look at that so we have a better understanding, We can look at this. This is the natural hydrogen economics, and green hydrogen, as you see, is significantly higher to produce than what is estimated for natural hydrogen. Natural hydrogen has an estimated projection of around 75 kilograms. And that is very important to note because, as I mentioned earlier, the DOE has that goal of 1 to 1 to 1, $1 per 1 kilogram, and this exceeds that. So that's very important to look at and note. So opportunities in growing hydrogen in the economy. So I think there's going to be a ton of opportunity in hydrogen in the near future. We're already there. We're already at the tipping point, especially when it comes to fuel growth of hydrogen fuel cells in vehicles. So we're already at the light duty in mainstream vehicles. We need to be focused on medium duty and heavy duty. I know that Hyundai currently has donated 30 heavy duty trucks to the state of California, and they're kind of doing test runs on those currently. But I think that there's huge potential there. I also think there's potential to create microgrids providing electricity to remote areas and increasing macro grids resilience. Natural hydrogen, as we talked about, is much lower to produce, and it has the potential to accelerate the pace of the global energy transition to net zero. From this is going to create a lot of job opportunities, a lot of economic value creation from hydrogen and energy projects. And now we're in the time to take advantage of the opportunities of the grants and the tax incentives that our government is giving to hydrogen projects. With that all being said, natural hydrogen exploration is in our forefront at New Energy Ventures. We have recently paired with PDIS, and we're collaborating with them to create and fund a new developed commercializing a drone project, which is going to be able to detect natural hydrogen as well as helium. Now, this technology is at the early stage, but we're pushing the agenda forward in order to produce a prototype. And then we're going to take this prototype, test it in our core areas of interest in order to find natural hydrogen and helium. I think that this is an important part of the puzzle. We need to be developing new innovative projects in order to push forward and bring about low emission carbon future. We all need to be doing our part and really diving deep into these technologies in order to protect our planet and reduce our carbon footprint. So in summary, as I mentioned, we're at a pinnacle point in the energy industry. We're in a transition period. And so we think, and I think, that hydrogen will be at the forefront of this transition, as several countries already have natural hydrogen strategies. As I mentioned, Japan, Canada, Chile, Australia, they're already strategizing on how they can move this agenda forward. Also, the U.S. Department of Energy supports the hydrogen industry is going to be at the forefront of this transition. They're funding projects and they're setting goals. Now, how can hydrogen help us? It can not only decarbonize the steel industry, the cement industry, and the ammonia industry, it can create jobs and value and opportunities. It can also lower the greenhouse emissions so we can meet those goals of 2030 and 2050 that our government has set. But in order to meet these goals, we definitely need all hands on deck. We need collaborative, innovative projects. We've already invested in one that we think will push the agenda, but we're also looking for other projects that are going to help with this lowering the greenhouse emissions. So another thing that we need to be mindful of is we need to push our policies that are going to be favorable and support these collaborations. We don't want anybody writing our own narrative. We need to be actively pushing policies. Not only that, we need to aid in building infrastructure and also bringing hydrogen to scale. So I think that one of our main focuses in the industry is going to be looking at infrastructures and how do we build those up. We're at a pinnacle point in history, and we need to keep this momentum going in order to see success. So thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you for that presentation. Let's go into the questions. Darren Gillespie, says, what is needed for the DOE to meet the 1-to-1-to-1 goal?
Great question. So I think there's several things that are going to need to happen in order for them to hit that goal. One being, I think that we need new, fresh ideas and collaborations. Traditional fossil fuel companies are going to need to collaborate with sustainable energy companies in order to meet this goal. I think one major thing that's lacking is infrastructure. I know the state of New Mexico is currently looking at repurposing some current infrastructures that they have. They're looking to be a hub for the hydrogen. So they're really looking to repurpose what they already have so they can be a leader in the hydrogen. But we're also going to have to build new infrastructure in order to see some success and to meet those goals. You can have all the great ideas, all these innovative ideas, but if you don't have money or investors, then those ideas are for naught. So we really need to be focusing on that and funding and investing in these innovative projects so we can meet the goals. We also need to diversify and we need inclusion. And what I mean by that is we need to include all communities in this initiative. We need to include low income areas and tribal communities in order to transition into hydrogen. So as I was mentioning, you can have all these great innovative ideas, but if there's not funding or investors, those ideas are for naught. So we really need to make sure that we have those and we're backing these innovative ideas. In order for them to meet the goals, I think there's also going to need to be diversity and inclusion. And what I mean by that is we're going to need to include all communities, and that includes low income areas and tribal communities into these goals and initiatives. And we're going to need to make bold policies that are in favor to the hydrogen transition. If we don't have these policymakers behind us and they're pushing agendas that don't align with our goals, then we're going to run into issues. So we need to make sure that we're out there lobbying for favorable policies. And lastly, we need to take advantage and they need to push out more incentives and tax credits that support this agenda.
Perfect. Thank you. Luke Stafford asks, what are some pathways on how we can reduce the cost of hydrogen?
So I think that that's kind of a two-step answer. I think first we need to look at how hydrogen is made. And it's typically made through electrolysis. And that requires a lot of heat and electricity. So I think that we need to look at how do we lower that cost of electricity. So I think that that needs to be the first step in this discussion. And then I think that we need to look at thermal integration and natural hydrogen exploration. As I mentioned, natural hydrogen is projected to be a lower cost of production at that 75%, and that's already meeting their goal of lowering it to $1 per 1 kilogram. I think we also need to look at lowering the capex and manufacturing at scale. I think that supply chains need to probably be focused on working on methods to take heat required for electrolysis, since there's so much heat that's required, and maybe coming up with ideas in order to reuse that heat that could lower the cost. And I think supply chains also need to look at the manufacturing costs of these equipment and the upkeep of this equipment for ownership. I think that there needs to be more lab tests run and more tests created in order to bring down and make these machines more efficient.
Thank you for that answer. Nicholas Orr asks, hydrogen cars versus electric cars. What's your take?
So I think they're both great. I think they're both great for different reasons, but I do think that hydrogen vehicles have a slight edge to EV. And that reason is simply because traditional consumers, they're used to a short fuel time. You know, we live in this society that we're always on the go, go, go. And a lot of people just don't have that 2 or 3 hours to sit around as their EV cars charge. I know that they're coming up and looking at advancing the technology there to make it a shorter charge time, but it's still going to be longer than the traditional time. Whereas hydrogen vehicles were already there. They have that 2 to 3 minute fuel time as we're used to. So I think that's a huge advantage. I also think the cells being a quarter of the size and weight as batteries and the disposable factor to our environment is going to play a huge part. And I think for either one of these vehicles to be successful, we really got to take a dive in and look at infrastructure. It's not there for either of them. These cars are great if you're in a metropolitan area that supply charging stations and hydrogen stations, but you're not taking these cars cross country currently. The infrastructure is just not there. I think that there's a huge opportunity there. The cars are already there. Hyundai just released a new hydrogen car last week, actually, and their goal is to have 16,000 cars on the road by 2025. They also, as I mentioned, have donated 20 or 30 heavy-duty vehicles to the state of California. They're kind of doing a test run there to see how that works out. And their next goal is to make these vehicles more affordable for low-income families. Like I said, in order for the DOE to meet this one-to-one goal, they're going to have an inclusion factor, and that's including low-income families. We can't have these high-cost vehicles if we want them to be successful, because not all families can afford those. So I think we really need to look at how we drive down the cost of these types of vehicles. And I think, like I said, the lack of infrastructure that's there is going to be these vehicles' biggest challenge that they face. So opportunity is endless there to help build that up. There's several companies that have already released hydrogen vehicles. Just to name a few is Toyota, Honda, and Hyundai, but BMW and Volkswagen are also looking to enter into this industry. So there's a lot of opportunity here with this. We just got to be willing to build those infrastructures to make them successful.
Kevin Gibbs asks, how do you think your experience with Chesapeake Energy and other companies has prepared you to take on the role of CEO of New Energy Ventures?
So yeah, I worked at Chesapeake. That's where I got my start. How it's been like about 10 years ago now. I won't date myself, but yeah, when I was at Chesapeake, they were at their height. They were the third largest in the United States of natural gas producer. They were at the leading innovation of NGLs in the industry way before anybody else. So yeah, they were all about innovation. And while I was there, I actually worked in the engineering department where we took tools and we looked at how we could optimize those tools. So I already had that innovative mindset at the start of my career, which kind of piqued that curiosity of innovation. I then decided to go back to grad school and I got my master's of science in energy law. And from there, that's when I gained kind of a curiosity to the sustainable forms of clean energy. And I took a leap of faith from that. And I moved to Los Angeles and I dove into the solar industry. And it was right at the beginning of when California was really starting to innovate that. And so I immediately jumped into it and just wanted to start pushing those clean initiatives forward. I have a background in business development of over 6 years that I think helps me a lot when it comes to building companies. And why not help build a company that I believe in? I'm very passionate about sustainable energies. I think that these goals that the government has set of net zero are attainable, but we have to be willing to do the work. And that's the first step, doing the work and pushing these initiatives in order to meet these goals. So I think it was only a natural fit because I had the passion towards it already and I had the background of the business development.
Well, I'm from Oklahoma, so I'm sure that being in Oklahoma gave you some great wisdom too to carry into all these other ventures because we kind of put energy on the map here in the US.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm born and bred from Oklahoma.
Okay.
My family was in the energy industry. I didn't have a chance to not be, like it's all I knew. It's all I grew up around. So I love it. So
I get it. I get it. Awesome. Last question from Devin Sosa. What kinds of projects are you looking for and how can they help transform Foothills?
Yeah, so as I mentioned in my presentation, we do have some core interests, power generation, carbon capture, hydrogen production, and oil field clean technology apps. But I think that, we definitely would be interested in looking at other projects that bring innovation and are going to help push this agenda of the net zero forward. So projects like that, hydrogen related projects regarding to production, especially in the natural hydrogen field. Storage, like I mentioned, the lack of storage, until we address that issue, we're not going to be able to bring it to scale. So we need to really focus on some innovative ideas there. And then infrastructure. I cannot stress that enough. If we want these vehicles and other aspects of hydrogen to be successful, we really need to start looking at infrastructure, repurposing current infrastructure, and then transportation technology. As far as hydrogen vehicles, I think that we would be interested in looking at something like that. This is a historical moment. We need to keep the momentum. We need to push these agendas. We really need to be prepared to do the work if we want to meet these goals. And I think that we can.
Tara, any closing remarks?
No, just we need all hands on deck. We need ideas. We need investors. We really need to start pushing these agendas. These goals are going to be coming up sooner than later. I mean, 2030 will be here in a blink of an eye. So time is of the essence. We really need to take advantage now.
Well, thank you for this great presentation. And we certainly hope you come back on and present again for our conference with some great updates. Thank you, Tara.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
All right, everyone, we have a few minutes as we transition to the next presenter at the top of the hour, so stay with us. We're coming back with some more great companies.
Thanks.